Channel Sports Central, we go over our next team projection of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Arkansas Razorbacks, a team that went 3-7 overall in the 2020 season, which, I mean, considering it was an all-SEC schedule for Arkansas, that was not a terrible season with a 3-7 record for Arkansas. But how will this team be in 2021, and will this team improve next season is what we're going over here today. We're going to go over a few players that Arkansas will be losing, who they're returning, and also get their schedule for the first time this offseason, starting out with the previous 6 games for the Razorbacks. And once again, this team being 3-7 in an all-SEC schedule, I mean, that's not a terrible season for Arkansas. Like, this team was 2-3 in their first 5 games. And I do understand 3-7, that is not a good football record, and I think pretty much everyone can agree with that. But just looking at Arkansas here, I mean, this is a team that has had very little success in college football over the past few years, and for them to win 3 SEC games last season out of 10 games is not a terrible season once again. Like, if this team could have played a full, just a regular 12-game season with a few non-conference games, this team could have made it to a bowl game next season. I mean, with Felipe Franks, like, he actually played pretty well for Arkansas, and of course, not much of a surprise considering Felipe Franks had some good success with Florida when he was there before he transferred to Arkansas. Yeah, this team really did not play that terrible last season. They kept a lot of games close, which were against very tough opponents like Texas A&M there. Texas A&M was an exponentially better team in comparison to Arkansas, but they kept it close within 11 points. They still took a loss, 31-42, but it was close. They beat Tennessee 24-13, lost to Florida. That was kind of a messy game there, 35-63. Lost to LSU by 3, 24-27. Lost to Missouri by 2, 48-50, and they lost to Alabama to finish out the season 3-52. So if you completely cancel out that Alabama game, this team was very close in a lot of matchups. Like, if you look at LSU and Missouri alone, like, if they could have just scored a couple more points, they could have had 2 wins there, and this team could have had a 5-5 record last season. But overall, yeah, it just didn't happen in the end. This team really fell in a lot of close matchups. But once again, not a terrible season for Arkansas. This team, I really do think it's just a bad deal that this team couldn't have had a normal 12-game season in 2020, because I really do think this team had the skill to possibly make it up to 6 wins and to a bowl game, which would have been a big occurrence for Arkansas. But looking at your roster preview, unfortunately, Felipe Franks will not be back for next season. However, you've got a upcoming quarterback in KJ Jefferson, who definitely has shown some glimpses of potential. Like, if you look at Felipe Franks, of course, he had over 2,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a 69% completion rate, which is not a terrible completion rate at all. Like, if you can be above 65% in the completion rate, like, that's a good percentage. But KJ Jefferson, he threw 41 times last season, only completed half of his passes, but he had 295 yards and 3 touchdowns in those 41 passes, which that is not terrible. Like, KJ Jefferson, he didn't throw a pick or anything when he was playing last season, so he does have potential. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does next season at quarterback. But looking at the running back position, you return your top run there, and Traylon Smith. Looking at him, he put up just over 850 yards, 6 touchdowns. Not a terrible season out of him. Rakeem Boyd, you're losing him, however. He was their second running back last season, put up just over 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. As for the wide receiver position, Treylon Burks, he's coming back. Mike Woods is also coming back. Same thing with De'Vion Warren. All 3 of them are coming back for next season. Mike Woods put up just over 600 yards. We saw Treylon Burks put up over 800, nearly 900 actually, with 7 touchdowns. And then De'Vion Warren put up just over 300. So overall, the wide receiver position looks excellent going into next season. Honestly, the returning production in general looks great. Like, the only question mark on this Arkansas offense especially, I'd say, is the quarterback position. If KJ Jefferson can play at least as well as Felipe Franks, which is pretty possible for him to do, like, this team has got some good potential going into next season, I'd say, on both sides of the ball, possibly make it to a bowl game. Like, skill players look really good. I mean, you're losing your second running back there with Rakeem Boyd, but you still got Smith in there, so I'm not very concerned about that. But you do lose 2 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker on the defensive side, which isn't terrible. Just hopefully the defensive line can hold up. But starting quarterback is going to have a huge impact on this team next season. There's no doubt about that. If the quarterback is good, if KJ Jefferson plays well, or whichever quarterback that starts plays well, this team is going to be good. And I think that for sure, I mean, this team has got a lot of potential if the quarterback position is good next season, but it's going to be close. We'll have to see what happens. Looking at the schedule, though, for next season, you start off the season with Rice on September 4th. You got Texas then after that on the 11th. You got Georgia Southern as well. So I think Rice and Georgia Southern will definitely be 2 wins in your first 3 games. No doubt about that. But that Texas matchup should be an interesting one. Texas A&M, you got them on the road. You got Georgia and Ole Miss on the road as well to start off your October. Then you got Auburn, of course, after that. So that is a very tough stretch in between September 25th and October 16th. You got 4 straight really tough games that could, hopefully if you can win one of those games, that'd be huge for this team. But then you got UAPB after that, so Arkansas Pine Bluff, that should be an easy win. You got Mississippi State then after that, LSU on the road, Alabama on the road, and then Missouri to finish out the season. So you kind of go through cycles over the course of the 2021 season. You've got 4 really tough games in between September and October, and then you got LSU and Alabama, of course, at the end of your season, which will be 2 very tough games. But otherwise, in between, at least you got a couple of easier ones with UAPB and Mississippi State, and then, of course, Missouri at the end of the season. But it should be very interesting to see how this team does, considering the toughness of their schedule. But looking at the first half, you got Rice, of course. That's going to be a win. Then you got, of course, Georgia Southern. That's going to be a win as well. Texas will be close. Texas A&M is going to be close. And Texas A&M, I think I'm probably favoring the Aggies right now just in that matchup because of the amount of talent that they've got. But who knows? It could be a close game. We saw it pretty close last season. Georgia's going to be a loss. I think Georgia next season is easily going to be a national contender. Really like that team next season. They're going to be in a great position for sure, I'd say, in the SEC. Possibly a college football playoff contender for that matter. Ole Miss will be a close one as well. I think Ole Miss definitely is a winnable game. Even though it's on the road after a game against Georgia, I could see Arkansas winning that matchup. But looking at the second half then, you got Auburn, of course. That'll be a close one. UAPB is going to be a win. So you got 3 guaranteed wins on your schedule. Mississippi State's going to be a close one. LSU's going to be a close one. Alabama, hate to say it, that's going to be a loss. Coming off of a tough game against LSU. Alabama, I just don't see that one being a win. Alabama's just too good of a team right now to beat, especially for a team like Arkansas, which Arkansas is on the rise. They're trying to get up there right now, but it's just, when you're in the SEC, it's just brutal. But Missouri's going to be a close one as well. Ceiling is going to be 7-5 for Arkansas next season, which I think if 7-5 happens, there's going to be a lot of happy Arkansas fans, I can guarantee you, just because of just where Arkansas has been in the past few years. But your projection, hate to say it, you're going to be 1 game short of a bowl game right now. This is my projection, just 5-7. Once again, I think 7-5 is much more likely than 3-9 for Arkansas next season, but 3-9 will be your floor. But I definitely think this team will be anywhere between 5 and 6 wins. They're going to be right on that gradient for a bowl game, which, 5 wins, even that would be a great season for Arkansas. But I feel like this team, they've got potential. This team definitely has got some good potential. It's just a matter of whether or not this team can win their close games and win the games that they're supposed to. You got 3 guaranteed wins already. It's just a matter of how many SEC games you can win, which, there's a few very winnable ones on here, like Mississippi State, that's very winnable. Auburn's very winnable, but Missouri's also very winnable. But it's just a matter of whether or not they can beat those opponents. But once again, projection will be 5-7 for your Razorbacks next season. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Arkansas. Let me know your record predictions and all of that down in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.